Of the however many Friday the 13th movies there are, I've seen 3. Friday the 13th, Jason X, and Jason 3 or 4. I don't know. I've basically seen them all because they're all the same movie, effectively. Here, let me do a mock trailer. A bunch of horny, attractive, drunken teenagers go into the woods to carouse and participate in other debauchery. Now that would be all well and good, except it turns out they are not alone. So basically in all those other Friday the 13th movies, you get the Scream rules are in effect, and it's basically just a bunch of IQ 75 motherfuckers just getting picked off one by one. And occasionally they'll throw in a wild card like a gang of bikers so they can get killed, and maybe a poor guy who doesn't get any ass at all, and murder them too. And that tangent I was off on, that's basically what this movie is like. All that stuff that I just mentioned is in this movie. Except they do stray away from the Scream rules a little bit. Now I feel it's only fair that I split this review up into 2 parts. Part 1 will be for those people who enjoyed the first Friday the 13th, and Part 2 will be for everyone else. Okay, Part 1. If you enjoyed the first Friday the 13th, you will like this movie, because you'll like any movie. Now, that's it. Part 2. Now this film is sort of a puzzle to review. On one hand, it's a terrible movie, but on the other, I really enjoyed it. Now, if you're confused, here let me explain. Your enjoyment of this film depends solely on the people you see it with. If you see this and there's practically no one else in the theater, I don't think you'll have a good time. But if you see this and the theater is packed, and you got some rowdy people in there, some people making jokes, then you'll have a great time. Now let me clear up any misconceptions right now. This movie is not scary. It's funny. There is no feeling of suspense. Before someone dies, it's almost like the makers of this film put up a little caption that says, "Now so-and-so will die." You know how horror movies will usually have those things that are supposed to be like jump scares where someone will turn around and they'll be like, "Oh, it's a lamp! Oh, it's a cat!" Well, there's one of those in this movie, and that's probably the most shocking point in the movie because you're like, wow, someone didn't get killed. This movie also has like a sort of weird sense of humor, and I dig that. An example is like a little subtle touch the filmmakers added here that I have to give them credit for. In the previous scene, Jason has just shot someone with a bow, and then in the next scene, there are these 2 people in Jason's old room, and the camera's panning, and it pans across, and there's an archery trophy. And since this movie is so funny, I can safely say that this is my favorite movie for the month of February 2009. And by the way, February is the worst month for movies. Because in January, people say that's worse, but nah. You kind of get that trickle over from Oscar season, and February just sucks. But this is kind of cool. Maybe you should check it out. Oh, and this is not a remake. It's a remake for like maybe 2 minutes. Then someone's head gets chopped off by a machete, and it's not a remake anymore. So it's basically just Friday the 13th or Jason or whatever, 11. Oh, and if you're thinking about seeing this film, remember the magical alliteration, Midnight Movie Madness. That's when you want to see this. Good night. I can't believe I saw Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th.